You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue.world.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week, we explore this heart condition in the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
This is Brenda Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. Join me every week to get information on activities and issues that impact the lives of older adults and their families. That's Seniors Matter every week on Rainier Avenue.
Welcome to the coronavirus pandemic. I'll take coronavirus for 100. Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is staying home and isolate? Correct. Coronavirus for 200. Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct.
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and potentially dead infectious disease eliminated in the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct.
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double. Should I take the coronavirus vaccine? Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
All right. Hey, that's our theme song from the Cookbook album with George Benson, Lonnie Liston Smith, etc., etc., etc. We have a great show today. I have my distinguished colleague and co-host coming in from afar. Buenas noches, señora. Brenda Charles Edwards. I don't know how to pronounce it in Spanish, and I'm not trying to be, disrespectful to Spanish because I did study Spanish for 3 years. Anyways, but I cannot. I'm not very versed in it. Hey, and I put in the Seattle logo behind me because we have two. Well, at least I know we have one very special guest, who is she's the International Special Review District individual and with Columbia City. Oh, we have both. Okay, so Alvin is here too, and we're going to give a little bit of background. We've invited them to come on. They represent the City of Seattle Department of Neighborhoods, and so it is great to have them here. Their office is in, I believe, City Hall, 600 4th Avenue on the 4th floor, 98104, and it's the Department of Neighborhoods. They got a phone number. I'll give it to you now, 206-684-0464, and they have individual phone numbers and emails, etc. But the reason why we invited them is because my distinguished co-host, the focus of our show is what's cooking in Columbia City, and we really want to grasp everything that's, I guess, apropos, I'll say French, apropos to Columbia City. And in her, like I said, in our discussion, it is her position that we need to cover all the bases, and I think we do in this respect, because we do have governmental agencies, public agencies involved in Columbia City. So I'm just going to stop there. Except the Department of Neighborhoods has what they call community engagement coordinators, and they represent Southeast Seattle, and that's Alvin Edwards, who's going to be our guest. North Seattle Community Engagement Coordinator, and that's Osvaldo Hernandez Sehegan. Central Seattle Community Engagement Coordinator, that's Laura Jenkins, and you have West Seattle and South Park Community Engagement Coordinator, Rosa Garcia. So they've covered the whole city in these different areas. So, and my again, I appreciate my co-host staying up late because after all, she's in the sun, 80-degree weather, and I don't want to exhaust her, but that is just great that you're enjoying yourself. But anyway, Brenda Charles was my co-host. So let's invite. Shall we invite Rebecca and Alvin? I'm hoping
we should.
Yes, I think we should, because you say I talk too much, so I'm going to be quiet. Hey.
Hello.
Good evening. Oh, at this late hour.
And good evening, Columbia City.
Yes.
And beyond.
Yes, right.
This is too funny. So welcome, both of you. I just want to do a special shout out to Alvin, because Alvin, I don't know if you remember me.
I do. We worked a lot during COVID, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we've never seen each other until now.
That's true.
So, it's great to finally meet you in person.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you. And Miss Rebecca, it's nice to meet you. And by the time this show is over, we'll know more about you.
Yes.
And
thank you for having us.
I look forward to this interview. So let's get started, because our show is short. So on a personal note, tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'll start with you, Rebecca, where you grew up, where you went to school, what got you interested in doing the work that you do?
Sure, thanks. So I'm Rebecca Frestedt. I work with the Historic Preservation Program with the Department of Neighborhoods. And I've lived in Seattle for next year it'll be 20 years, but I'm not originally from Washington. I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, which is a port city on a hill surrounded by forests. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
My first stop in Seattle, I was like, this feels like home. So I grew up there, but then lived in Minneapolis for 15 years prior to moving out here. Another great city, Minneapolis. But while I was in Minneapolis, I was a student in part, and was really interested in studying the built environment, how people interact with their communities, how decisions that are made within cities impact neighborhoods, and got really involved in my neighborhood organization there, and I was thinking about this right before we signed on today. I think one of the most pivotal things is that I took a travel class in Mexico, fitting that you're there, that was all about social change in Latin America. And the class was focused on indigenous people who were advocating for better services, better quality of life from the Mexican government. And it really made me reflect on how we're treating our communities here in the United States and how I can be involved in that kind of work more locally. And so that was pretty pivotal. And then I've always been interested in kind of the buildings and architecture, and it all just kind of blended together and feels like where I ended up is a very natural progression.
Very good.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And Mr. Alvin, how about you?
Yeah, so So first and foremost, thank you for inviting us on this platform. It's not often that we get invited on a platform like this. So very appreciative that you would have us. My name is Alvin Edwards. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Department of Neighborhoods. My areas are Southeast Seattle, Soto, and Georgetown. So those are the places where I'm usually at in community. I actually grew up in Burien, but I have a lot of ties to Seattle. As like my dad's whole family is basically from Seattle. They grew up in the CD in the South End, as we call it. So, growing up, I was always in Seattle, watching my cousins play football, hanging out with them, and just running around, being a kid. My uncle actually, funny story, owned a salon in Columbia City back in like the late 80s, early 90s. So it's actually, I think the place it is now, it's like the Kazira Cafe. I think it's an Ethiopian restaurant now, but back in the late 80s and 90s, my uncle used to have a salon there. So we were always over there, playing outside, playing football, with my cousins and stuff, and just messing around.
What's your uncle's name?
Eddie Edwards. He passed away a couple years ago now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as far as how I got into this line of work, I will say, and John, I know you know Ellen Ruth very well. I would say she's a huge piece of why I got into this work. Her and another previous supervisor I had when I worked for the Neighborhood Matching Fund. I used to be an admin over there. And they would take me out on community meetings and meeting with people to talk about projects and things like that. And I was more of kind of a behind the scenes kind of guy. And, that really kind of propelled me into, being in front and talking with people and kind of figuring out what's going on in the neighborhoods and what projects people are working on. So that kind of just showed me a new side of everything. And, it was like really something that I loved, because I would meet people in community and, build relationships with folks. And, some of these people I'm even like really friends with in real life outside of the work. So it's been like really fulfilling. And I think that's probably why I wanted to be a community engagement coordinator, just because I would be able to be out in the field and talking with people about what's happening in community, and maybe solving some problems, or if not solving some problems, maybe leading them in the right direction for solutions. So I think that's why I wanted to do this job.
So where did you go to school? High school, if I could ask.
Well, I actually went to high school in Des Moines, Washington, Mount Rainier High School. Yeah.
Oh, Mount Rainier.
Yeah. Familiar? Okay. Yeah. Mount Rainier High School. That's where I went to high school.
Oh yeah, and Rebecca, you said I'm from Chicago originally, so we used to visit
really great city,
the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, as well as other parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin too, as a matter of fact. And I coached a couple of kids named Edwards, Troy Edwards, played football for me at CAY, and then I coached out of Garfield. But anyways, I told Brenda she can have the whole questions, but she doesn't want to do the whole thing, so I got the next one. So and I think this is a good question to ask. Now, and Brenda, you've got it's your question. I'm sorry, I forgot that you had this one when you're asking about who are you, DON. So that's your, you can take it. So.
Oh, John, you're so precious.
I'm running out of energy.
Oh, is that what it is?
9:30. I mean, this is not prime time. This is a little.
9:30 for you, and what time for me right now?
11:30 for you. I
am. Okay. Just checking. Anyway, so Department of Neighborhoods encompasses a lot of different, what's the word to use? Not organizations. Well, for instance, when I met Alvin, it was because of the COVID-19 vaccinations. And that's one, well, I'm sure it turned into a very large piece. I think we thought that it wasn't going to be quite as large as it turned out to be, because it's still, in my book, the COVID's not over.
Right. Right.
We're
Absolutely.
still in it.
Right.
And sometimes I have problems with convincing people that we are still in it. We still need to be masked. We still need to have some distance and just, hand sanitizers. Just take care of yourself. And of course, wear that mask. My husband and I we went out to dinner and we had our masks on and we're looking around in the hotel. And I think there might have been one other couple that had masks on, but everybody else didn't have masks on. The employees had masks on.
Yeah.
But I said, this is interesting. I realize I'm in a foreign country, so to speak, quote unquote, but they got hit hard too with COVID. And so I know that they're really trying to keep the numbers down by still taking care of oneself. So, and I was in Washington, D.C. A couple of days ago too, same thing. And I was at a conference and there was a lot of people, over 800 people. And still a lot of them were not wearing masks. We did have to wear a mask when we met in sessions. So I was glad to see that because, like I said, I had mine on the whole time. It was just very interesting. But what other programs do you do?
I'll go ahead.
Sure. One, jump for it.
So I think a couple of the programs that many of your viewers, listeners are familiar with are like the Neighborhood Matching Fund, of which Rainier Avenue Radio is a recipient, as I understand, and the Pea Patch program, so the community gardening program. Those are probably a couple that people are most familiar with because they've seen the results of that work out in the community. The Rainier Vista Snoqualmie Garden, the Rainier Vista Sunrise Garden, Hillman City Garden, Brandon Street Orchard are just some examples of some of the pea patches, just to kind of make the space familiar. But then different public artworks as well have been, or traffic circles and things like that to help improve the quality of the neighborhood and the livability of communities are things that we've helped to support and fund. But the Historic Preservation Program is part of the Department of Neighborhoods, and some of the civic engagement work with the Renters Commission and the redistricting commissions, for instance, are housed within the Department of Neighborhoods. So we actually oversee and staff quite a few of the city's boards and commissions. And so that's one example of the types of work that we do.
Oh, landmarks, correct? You are
landmarks, yep. So the Landmarks Preservation Board, along with the various boards and commissions that help to regulate the 8 historic districts that are located in the city, of which Columbia City is one, are also based out of the Department of Neighborhoods. Okay. So we're based in City Hall, but we work out in the community all the time. In fact, we had a Columbia City Review Committee meeting just earlier this evening.
Okay.
So.
Hey, Rebecca, did you say about the traffic circles that you're involved with that? So I'm curious about those. Do you know if there's any statistics about how many accidents occur because of those circles?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Our role in those would be as part of the Neighborhood Matching Fund, if there's like traffic calming that the community would like to do to make it a safer street, for instance, for residents to, use and recreate on, in addition to just vehicular traffic. Sometimes slowing the traffic through circles or traffic bumps or other artworks, murals on the pavement have been funded by, in part, the Neighborhood Matching Fund. But it would be the Department of Transportation that would retain some of that data. But I think that's an example of where our Department of Neighborhoods, works a lot with other city departments and helps put community in touch with and makes more accessible city government in general. So by creating bridges between community who are looking to maybe address a concern in the neighborhood or want to implement some great community idea or public project. And so we can help kind of build those bridges and make connections. for the
Thank you.
I was on the vaccination team down at Lumen Field, and there were several. DON was part of it, and a number of city departments, and yeah, it was really great effort. We did thousands of vaccinations in a very short period of time. But when we say Department of Neighborhoods, and people say, "Well, what is it? What does that mean for Columbia City? What does that do for me? Does that get me excited about DON and Columbia City? And how do you support? And what is the benefit that you provide for us in Columbia City, for all of us in Columbia City?" So,
Well,
yeah.
Is that for me or is that for Rebecca?
Any of
Go
you.
ahead, Alvin.
I just don't want to step on anyone's toes. So I would say, like in general, but if we're speaking about Columbia City, I would say us at the Department of Neighborhoods, we act as a bridge between Columbia City and the community and just the city government in general. So like we're involved in projects all over the city. We provide community engagement and support, ensuring that like historically harmed and underserved communities have a voice and representation in the city. So like for instance, the Royal Esquire, places like that. We want to make sure establishments like that stay in the area and they're not, priced out or gentrification is not happening. We want to invest in those types of things and making sure that they can keep those things going, because as we know, a lot of neighborhoods, there's not a lot of people of color and BIPOC organizations and businesses anymore. So I think at the Department of Neighborhoods, we really, that's kind of like one of our North Stars, really investing in those BIPOC and immigrant and refugee organizations who really don't have a voice and haven't been at the table to kind of, talk about, what's going on with them. You always have the certain few who have connections to the city, but we at Department of Neighborhoods want to be that connection for those people who haven't been at the table or who don't have a voice. So
I like that.
Yeah, well, that's very good. I know there's an economic issue. There's collateral damage when any community becomes gentrified. And people say, what happened to the businesses? Well, when the neighborhood changes, the businesses go.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's obvious. When you drive through, when we came here from Chicago, we could go through the central area and you could get everything. Dry cleaning, food, movies, etc. Get your shoes, take all of that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden things change. And not for always the negative, but things change. So the benefit of the department, and we're a beneficiary of it. Rainier Avenue Radio .org. We're acquired the Columbia City Theater, which is for us.
Heard about that.
I'm also part of the board of the Central District Community Preservation Development Authority, which we're trying to hold on to the SOIC SBI building because it stands as one of the tallest. It is the tallest building that could be ostensibly owned and operated by the community, not some developer and stuff like that. So when we talk about the benefits and the support, I understand that. But so then now, either of you, what does the future look like now? This is 2022. What are we looking forward?
So I've thought about that question, and I feel that question for both the historic districts that I work with. I also work with the Chinatown International District, which is the International Special Review District, but specifically Columbia City. I think the answer in that question really lies within the people of Columbia City, because they're going to help determine what they want to see in their community, how they want to see their community evolve. And I think our role in that is helping to, and when I shouldn't say evolve, but to how the neighborhood wants to see the community continue to be a place for those who've lived and worked and grown up in that area. And so how can we within the Department of Neighborhoods help support that vision? It might be through helping to align people with resources through other city departments, whether it's through the Office of Economic Development or the Office of Housing. If there's something as simple as like the brick pavers that line Columbia City on Rainier are turned up and become a hazard to people, or one of the street lights is out, and how can we connect people to the folks that they need to talk to get those repairs made and to make sure that the neighborhood is a safe and welcoming place. I mean, I think that that's one of the ways that we can help support that. And then, I'd mentioned the matching fund as maybe a way to help provide some financial resources to help see a project idea, a nugget or a seed that can sprout and be realized into something bigger.
Mm-hmm. So I know Brenda has just waiting to get in her question. So I'm going to turn it over to her because I'm going to have a follow up. But go ahead, Brenda. Take it away.
I was curious, Rebecca. You said that you're also working with quote unquote Chinatown. What I know we're talking about Columbia City, but Chinatown has been a very important community in Seattle. And I remember spending a lot of time there many, many years ago. And how are they feeling with the way things are going for them right now with all the violence and the disruption of their businesses? How are you able to help them?
I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on that neighborhood because of a lot of the public safety issues that you referenced, and development pressure. I mean, talk about gentrification and potential displacement. That's a huge concern for members of that community. And
the ST issue, sound transit issue.
And that was what I was going to say. And then the infrastructure impacts. It started long before even Sound Transit Tunnel got built, with the construction of I-5 right through the heart of the neighborhood. And then, the community could enumerate many other examples of public impacts to that neighborhood. So I think helping in terms of the Department of Neighborhood's role, we've been involved in with the community engagement coordinator. Laura Jenkins works with that neighborhood very closely and has been involved very heavily in working with Little Saigon and some of the outreach and engagement related to public safety concerns at 12th and Jackson, for instance.
Right.
I work with the volunteer board of community members who helps weigh in on proposed development to try to help make sure that those projects respond to kind of the vision and the goals and objectives and design that the community set out for itself when creating the historic district, and making sure that there's cultural relationship between the projects that are coming through and the greater community, so that it's a project that speaks of its place and not just something that would be built anywhere else in the city. And I think the same could be said for Columbia City, that's
I was just going to ask
part
that.
of what the Historic Preservation Program and the local Columbia City Review Committee and the Landmarks Preservation Board take very much into concern is how does development that happens or changes that happen continue to reflect the place that's there and the kind of the goals and objectives that the community has for the neighborhood.
I think it's really interesting, and it says a lot for Columbia City, is that through this pandemic, and especially the last 2 years of it, it seemed that we didn't lose that many businesses, but we gained some more. And then the ones that did leave, somebody took its place. It's almost like they were on a waiting list. And it's like, oh, there's an opening, boop, boop, we're in. But I can't believe, I don't know the square footage of Columbia City, but there is something everywhere. I mean, it's all types of businesses. You were talking about the Royal Esquire Club. Well, going south on Rainier, just past the Esquire Club, it used to be a little bakery. Now it's a Thai restaurant. Right. And John had been in there, and he said, "You got to go check it out." So my husband and I went in there and had a fabulous dinner. And I said, "Oh, wow," but I never went in when it was the bakery. That's kind of weird. But there's so many different little restaurants. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're almost like a little Saigon, except that we have so many other nationalities in the neighborhood.
Yeah, we had Island Soul. We had Theo on a week ago. But the other thing, Brenda, you bring up a very good point. The diversity is the selling point that makes Columbia City so attractive. And compressed in that little area, and let's include Hillman City,
Yes.
you have over 100 businesses of every type, chiropractors, locksmiths, etc. You know, and that's why we crafted this show. It's called What's Cooking in Columbia City, and you're watching it live and listening live on Rainier Avenue Radio .world. We come on every Tuesday live at 9:30 to 10. I had to put that plug in because we're running out of time. But
He just said, that's time.
That's time. Our producer, but thank you very much, Rebecca and Alvin. We will have you back again.
Yes.
Because this is a great follow-up, because we know that there is an exciting thing. And when I talk to, just real quick, the folks at El Centro de la Raza, there's going to be a development that they're going to be doing in the Columbia City area, I found out. You know, I talked to Miguel and Estella, and I'm excited as heck about that. A community-based organization is going to be doing development for housing and living, and that's great, and daycare. So anyways, I'll be quiet. They said that's time. Any other last comments, either of you, real quick? Anything, Alvin and or Rebecca?
I would say thank you again. And I would just add that Columbia City is thriving. I remember a time where, you know, it was boarded up through there, and, you know, there's a lot of different activities going on, and it's a completely different world there now. It's beautiful. It's thriving. That's what I would add.
And I would just encourage all viewers and listeners to continue to support the small business districts, because it's part of what makes Seattle what it is the vitality of these neighborhoods. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, guys. It was
Thank you very
wonderful.
much.
Alvin, we'll connect later because I have some questions for you off record.
All right, sounds good.
Enjoy the rest of your trip, Brenda.
Thank you. I'm just loving the sun.
All right.
Bring some
See
back
you
with
guys soon.
Tune in next week. Yeah, tune in next week to What's Cooking in Columbia City. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Alvin. Have a great rest of your week.
You as well.
Thank you,